review of the Paradisus Cancun. So recently I went to Cancun with some friends and my boyfriend, and we stayed at the Paradisus Cancun by Melia. And this is an all-inclusive resort, but all-inclusive is not mandatory, which means that there are different types of guests at the resort. So some people are all-inclusive, some people are not all-inclusive, and some people are, I think, partially inclusive. So it really depends, and everything is denoted by, I like kept my bracelet on so I could show you, everything's denoted by these bracelets. So I think this pink one denoted that we were in royal service, and the gold one was because we did a presentation for a timeshare, which gave us like excursion discounts, which they'll probably try to get you to do. That's just a thing that happens in Cancun, Mexico. They just want to sell you a timeshare. But yeah, so the first thing I wanted to talk about is number one, what is an all-inclusive and whether or not it's right for you. So let's get into that. The first thing I wanted to talk about is how all-inclusives work, just because maybe you don't know how they work. All-inclusives are basically a vacation package that you would purchase with this specific resort, and if it is a mandatory all-inclusive, that means like no matter what you do, you're paying for it. And if it's not, then you can opt in for it. And what that means is that some of the food is included, some of the excursions maybe, or maybe not excursions, but activities that they have are included. They might give you access to certain areas of the resort that other people don't get access to, and they might include certain restaurants that aren't included if you don't pay for all-inclusive. So with the Paradisus Cancun specifically, they included food, and because we purchased royal service, which is like the upgraded rooms, that allowed us to get access to the royal service pool, which is only for people who paid for royal service, so it's a little more exclusive, and it was like never busy. You also get access to the spa hydrotherapy, and then a couple of other things that you get that are amenities, including a butler. One of the things I think you should consider before deciding whether you want to do all-inclusive is whether or not you really depend on the food. Like for me, I really love to experience the food of a location, and all-inclusive was such a letdown. I think for all me and my friends and my boyfriend, the biggest disappointment was the food. Like it just wasn't good. And that's true for most all-inclusives. We had never done it before, so we didn't really know what we were walking into, but I kind of had a feeling. But the weird thing about all-inclusives, specifically in Cancun, from what I've experienced, at least at Paradisus, is that we got hardly any Mexican food, which was so weird for me. They did have some Mexican restaurants, but they were super watered down, and like they tried to make Mexican food fancy. I really have a hard time explaining this, but it's like they try to make it something that it's not. So it just really didn't taste like authentic Mexican food. And living here in California, we have a pretty high standard of what Mexican food is supposed to taste like, and we just didn't really get that experience. So that was kind of a letdown. All the restaurants pretty much in Paradisus Cancun are like Latin or Mediterranean, which is pretty cool if you're into that. But in my opinion, the food basically overall sucked. So when you go to Cancun Paradisus by Melia, then you actually have an option of like 7 different restaurants, I think. I don't know. Some of them they're counting as restaurants, and really they're just like bars or places that you can get food. So it's a little bit confusing. The main restaurants they have, I have a list here, are Tempo, which is their 5-star Michelin chef restaurant, and that's the only one that's not included, even if you pay for all-inclusive. That one's totally separate cost. And then there is Market Grill, which is Brazilian grilled meats and stuff. Bana, which is like sushi and Asian fusion. Naus, which is their international buffet, which is gonna be the most accessible thing. You're probably gonna eat there a million times if you go stay there. It's just like the easiest thing to go eat at. It's always open. You can just literally walk in and grab a plate and like sit down. And then there's Mole, which is more like a modern spin on Mexican food. There is Blue Agave, which is basically the closest thing you're gonna get to tacos and quesadillas and that kind of thing. Vento, which we didn't get to eat at, which I'm pretty sure it's the Mediterranean cuisine. And then there was Fuego, which was Latin fusion. And then Coco's Beach Bar, which really isn't a restaurant. It's more like a place where you can get burgers while you're at the pool. I really think that if you're going to stay at Paradisus Cancun, then you should definitely upgrade to Royal Service. Now, the reason for this is because you get access to so many more amenities than if you were just a regular paying customer. Most of all because you get an upgraded room, which means that your room's gonna be very nice, and it's gonna have like upgraded amenities and like a better view, and people are just generally gonna give you better service, at least in my experience. Also, you get access to something called a butler. I'm using that very loosely because they call it a butler, but really it's not. Really, it's somebody that's kind of on call that you can either text or page the Royal Service extension, and they'll have that person call you back. And basically you can have them plan every excursion that you do, every dinner reservation that you would like to get at any of the restaurants on the resort, and they can help facilitate anything that you want to experience while you're in Cancun. As Americans, we really had a hard time with this concept just because the idea of a butler just sounds like a personal servant in our culture, and that's not really the same thing in Cancun. Paradisus, like what they're talking about is actually just somebody who helps you get anything that you want to get done in terms of reservations or making your vacation easier. So if you do want to have their help and you want them to schedule excursions for you or reservations for any of the restaurants, I recommend that you do it the first day that you're there. They're gonna overload you with so much information when you arrive. It was like my brain was exploding. Like after traveling for like 9 hours and then having to listen to them talk about everything that was available, like you're just not gonna take it all in. But the important thing is, if there's anything that you wanna schedule, if there's anywhere you wanna go, ask your butler like the first day, because the restaurants are really hard to get into. There were some that we just could not get into simply because they were all booked up, and there were other ones we had to wait or push back a day because there were so many people that we just couldn't get in. And also in terms of excursions, we ended up planning those ourselves, which took quite a bit to actually nail down the times. But if you want to plan your excursions and you don't want to stress about it, then maybe you could ask your butler to do it for you. Okay, so I just want to talk a bit more about what you get when you pay for Royal Service. You get an upgraded room. You also get access to the Yi Spa hydrotherapy, and basically what that is you get access to their like steam room and sauna and some like weird health drinks, basically like chlorophyll and water and like teas. And then you also gain access to this kind of like lap pool that has a bunch of different sequenced jets which massage different parts of your body. It's really not that special, but it's kind of a cool amenity to have. It's nothing that I would ever pay for. I feel like if I had paid for it, I would be a little pissed off because it's not really worth the service in my opinion. But if you're into that kind of thing, or if you're going with friends, it's kind of a fun thing to do, like when you're tired of being at the beach all day, or you came home from an excursion and you're like, holy crap, my muscles are sore or something. The other main thing is that you gain access to a Royal Service lounge in which you have brand name alcohol and like specific snacks that are specific to Royal Service. Also, I noticed that in the Royal Service lounge, they actually have the air conditioning running, where in other parts of the resort, it's very humid and it's just like generally warmer. So they obviously like cater to people who are in Royal Service. And whenever you get a drink outside of the Royal Service, you don't really know what's going in it. You don't know if it's like the cheapest alcohol. So if that's the kind of thing you care about, and you care about, you know, getting your drink on, then Royal Service actually has a lot of value in terms of that. The last thing that you gain access to if you purchase Royal Service is that you actually gain access to the Royal Service pool area, and it's specifically for people in the Royal Service, like if you paid for a Royal Service package or room. So there's no kids allowed. So if you're just a couple, or if you're an adult and you just don't want to be around kids and you want something quieter, and you just want like a quiet place to like swim in the pool, then this might be a good option for you, because it really wasn't that busy like at all while we were there. And there were a lot of people at this resort. They just, majority of them were with kids, or they didn't pay for Royal Service. So you get kind of a more exclusive package when you stay in Royal Service. Okay, so now that I talked about what it's like to stay at Paradisus Cancun and being all-inclusive, and also the Royal Service, I want to talk a little bit about what I loved about Paradisus Cancun and what I didn't love. The first thing, like a list. The first thing I really loved about Paradisus Cancun is that there's plants all over this place. And in terms of being eco-friendly, I think it's one of the more eco-friendly resorts I've ever been to. There are vines hanging down from the wall, there are plants all over the place, like almost every area of the resort has plants, and like it's just very beautiful, but also very eco-friendly, and you feel like the air is maybe cleaner. Also, they don't use a whole lot of paper and plastic. I think the plastic they do use is reused, like maybe they sanitize them and then reuse them, because they do have plastic cups out by the pool, I'm assuming, because they don't want broken glass to happen out there. But they're very sturdy ones, so I'm assuming they reuse them. And the other thing too is that you won't see any paper towels or like seat covers in the bathrooms. They just don't use them. They're trying to cut down on waste, which is really cool. And the other thing too is that if you go out on excursions to any of the like lagoon or the coral reef, if you do any of that excursion, you'll need biodegradable sunscreen. It seems like the actual tour guides don't care and they're not enforcing it, but the people in the hotel mentioned that we should have it, and that if you don't have it, it's actually damaging to the water and the coral reef, so we ended up purchasing that. So if you're gonna come, I recommend buying your own because the prices are like severely jacked up for this biodegradable sunscreen, so I'm not sure if it's some kind of scam or if they actually are enforcing this, so it's just something to keep in mind. The other thing I really liked about this resort is the fact that there's really good service everywhere. You can get food pretty much anywhere you go, so if you're like starving, you can actually get food very immediately. And also the rooms are really nice. I think the royal service rooms are a lot nicer than the regular rooms, which is why I think you should probably upgrade if you're gonna stay here, because I noticed that on their website, the regular rooms look really Spartan. Not to say they're not nice, but if you want a more like luxury accommodation, then it's definitely worth investing in. And it's not really that much more expensive to upgrade, especially if you book through something like Expedia or like Orbitz or something. The last thing I wanted to talk about are the things I didn't like about Paradisus Cancun. And the main things I didn't like were the food. The food was just not good. It was just pretty terrible. By day 3, I was super sick of the buffet food, and like everything tastes like a buffet. It doesn't matter if you're in a restaurant or you're not in a restaurant. The food is just like lower quality. You can just tell that they're kind of pushing people through it because they have so many people to get through, and also because they want to keep costs down so that they can maximize the amount of money they make from you for purchasing the all-inclusive. And pretty much all-inclusives all around Cancun are probably going to be the same. As far as I'm concerned, Paradisus Cancun is probably one of the higher quality all-inclusives, but it really was kind of a bummer because we were looking forward to some really good food and we didn't experience that. The other things I didn't like were the spa. I kind of felt like the spa was really lackluster. Even though we had the hydrotherapy included with our royal service stay, that was just kind of ho-hum. And again, I would have been really pissed had I had to pay for this. But on top of that, we actually also paid for massages, like just a regular body massage, and it really wasn't anything special. Like I didn't feel like it was done by a professional massage therapist, if that makes sense. Either that or they just have different styles or standards for massage therapy than in America. I just felt like it wasn't anything that was incredibly special to me, and I definitely wouldn't do it again. The last things that I wanted to mention are that the pools close at 7 p.m. in this resort, and I'm not sure if that's something that happens in every resort or if it was just this particular resort, but that was kind of a bummer because like I really looked forward to like swimming at night, and you really can't do that on the beach, and they don't even leave their pool lights on, so it's like pitch black out there, which is kind of a bummer. I mean, 7 p.m. is not really that late, so that was one thing that really kind of like, you know, it was a little bit of a bummer, but it was okay. The final thoughts I have about Paradisus Cancun are that it's a great place to stay if you're staying in Cancun and you want to experience an all-inclusive resort. It's a really beautiful atmosphere. The royal service rooms are lovely. The royal service lounge is really awesome. It's a great place to go if you want to like get away from the crowds because this place gets super busy, and royal service was kind of like away from the mass of people that were there. It kind of gives you a little bit more privacy. Also, the rooms are definitely upgraded, like they definitely felt nicer than your average room. And also I like the fact that we could go to our own pool in our own little area and not really like have to deal with a bunch of kids, because we're just like people in our mid-20s, early 30s, and none of us have kids yet. So the last thing is that they have a beautiful stretch of private beach, and I definitely recommend you guys check that out because it's so beautiful. Like the water is so blue. It's not super clear. It's not like Bahamas or anything like that, but it is definitely beautiful in its own right, and there are beautiful skies, like sunsets every day that I definitely think are worth taking a picture in front of, and definitely going to swim in the water because it is super warm. It's like bath water. It's crazy. Oh, and the last thing I wanted to mention, I don't know, I didn't mention this in the beginning, but this video is not sponsored. I paid with my own money via Southwest Vacations. They're not sponsoring this either. I'm just letting you know for, you know, FYI information. But yeah, I paid with my own money. We went on our own dime. They're not affiliated with me in any way. I'm just thought I would share my thoughts about this resort just in case you were considering going there, because it is one of the higher rated resorts in Cancun, and it's definitely one of the better all-inclusives in my opinion. And I definitely think that if you're gonna plan a trip to Cancun, then it's a great place to enjoy your stay while you go out on excursions or go see Chichen Itza or whatever you're gonna do. So yeah, that's my thoughts. That is it for my Paradisus Cancun all-inclusive resort review. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you want more specific information, I have linked below my blog post where I'm talking specifically about the accommodations, the spa, the actual resort restaurants and what each one entails, and just a couple of other ideas. I'm also going to be doing a Cancun travel guide video and another blog post to help you guys figure out the coolest things to do, where to stay, and all of that jazz, and some travel tips to help you if you are planning on going to Cancun soon. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye.